improve yourself. Good evening, everyone. You see, the qualities that make us different are often the very things that lead us to greatness. Those things that feel like challenges today can become our greatest strengths tomorrow. Every step in our journey shapes us, and it's up to us how we choose to embrace those moments. Of course, all of this doesn't happen by waiting for the perfect moment. You have to take action. And it doesn't have to be big. The most important thing is that you start, even if it's just one small step. That's how improvement happens, through small, deliberate actions that add up over time. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. In fact, mistakes are essential to our growth. They teach us lessons that success never will. So don't strive for perfection, strive for growth. Imperfection is beautiful because it shows us that we are learning and evolving. As you move forward, remember to celebrate your progress. Look at how far you've come, not just how far you have left to go. Every small victory counts. The journey matters just as much as the destination, and acknowledging each milestone keeps you inspired and motivated. Lastly, don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It's not a weakness, it's a strength. When we open up and share our struggles, we invite others to do the same. Vulnerability creates connections, and through those connections, we grow stronger together. When you face life's challenges, do so with openness and authenticity, because in vulnerability, we find our greatest strength. So as you go forward on your journey of improvement, remember this: you are unique. You are capable of great things. Keep pushing through the challenges. Keep changing your perspective. Take action, celebrate progress, and embrace imperfection. You have everything you need to improve yourself step by step, day by day. Embrace your uniqueness. When I first started on my journey, I couldn't see how my challenges were part of what made me unique. I wanted to fit in, to blend with others, to look like I was just like everyone else. And who could blame me? We live in a world where it's easy to get caught up in what's normal, to feel like if we're not following a specific path or living up to certain expectations, we're somehow falling short. But over time, I realized something important: being unique isn't something to hide or feel ashamed of. It's something to celebrate. Our differences, our quirks, our struggles, they don't define us in a limiting way. They empower us, make us stand out, make our voices matter. For me, that moment of awakening came after I lost my legs. At first, I couldn't imagine how something so devastating could ever be part of a greater purpose. I felt broken, like my future was slipping through my fingers. But then I realized something powerful: my struggle wasn't something that would hold me back, it was something that could move me forward. It was a part of my story, a story that only I could tell. My journey became a testament to the fact that we don't have to look or be like everyone else to make a difference. We all carry our own stories. Some of those stories are filled with triumph, while others are laced with hardship, but none of them are insignificant. Every challenge, every moment of doubt, every time you've had to pick yourself up after falling contributes to who you are today. And that's something no one else can replicate. I used to spend so much time wishing I could change certain parts of myself. But as I grew, I realized that embracing the very things I once tried to hide or fix made me who I am. It wasn't about changing myself to fit into someone else's mold. It was about owning every part of who I am and recognizing the power in that. And that's the key. When you embrace your uniqueness, you stop apologizing for who you are. You stop looking at yourself as a broken version of someone else and start seeing yourself as exactly what the world needs. The quirks, the challenges, the traits that make you feel different, those are the things that will set you apart. And they will give you the courage to face things that others may shy away from, because when you embrace your uniqueness, you tap into a well of strength that comes from knowing your worth. Think about the things that make you different. What if those things are the very qualities that will allow you to do what others cannot? What if the struggles you face will allow you to reach a place of understanding that no one else can? When you lean into your uniqueness, you stop seeing challenges as obstacles and start seeing them as opportunities for growth, for transformation, for self-discovery. It's easy to feel like an outsider when you're different. The world can sometimes make you feel like you need to conform to be accepted or valued. But here's the truth: conformity is never where your greatest strength lies. Your greatest strength comes from being authentic, from honoring the person you are right now with all your complexities, your past, your scars, and your dreams. And the beauty is that as we embrace our uniqueness, we also inspire others to do the same. When we show up authentically, we create space for others to embrace who they are. And that ripple effect has the power to change not just our lives, but the world around us. Because when we own who we are unapologetically, we show others that they too can do the same. So I challenge you today to look at your story, not just the parts that are easy to celebrate, but the parts that have been tough, the parts that maybe you've tried to hide or overlook. Those parts are your strength. Those parts are what make you unique. When you start embracing all of who you are, you'll unlock a strength you never knew was there. And that will give you the courage to step forward and make your mark on the world. Remember, the world doesn't need another version of someone else. The world needs you exactly as you are. Your experiences, your voice, your individuality, it's what the world needs more of. And when you embrace that, not only will you change the course of your own life, but you'll inspire others to do the same. You are unique, and that is your superpower. Persevere through challenges. I often hear people say, I'll never be able to do this, or this is too hard, and I get it. It's so tempting to give up when things feel overwhelming, when you're up against something that seems impossible. In those moments, the weight of the world can feel too heavy to carry, and the finish line might seem so far away. But here's the thing I've learned: it's in those moments when you feel like you can't go any further that you are actually building the strength you'll need to reach your next level. When I lost both my legs, I had no idea how I was going to move forward. The road ahead looked uncertain, and for a while I was paralyzed by fear and doubt. It was one of the toughest challenges I've ever faced. I remember lying in the hospital thinking, how am I supposed to get through this? But I realized something crucial: perseverance isn't about avoiding hardship or never feeling fear. It's about choosing to keep going despite it. It's about finding the strength to keep moving even when you're unsure of the next step. I've had a lot of challenges in my life, from my health struggles to the obstacles I've faced in my career, but I've come to see each challenge as an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to rise, not because it's easy, but because it matters. It's easy to quit when the going gets tough, but perseverance isn't about taking the easy road. It's about digging deep and finding that part of yourself that refuses to quit even when you want to. Persevering through challenges requires a shift in mindset. The first step is accepting that challenges are a process, not an indication that something is wrong. The world doesn't owe you smooth sailing. There will always be bumps along the way, and that's okay, but when we accept that challenges are part of life, we can start to approach them differently. Instead of looking at them as obstacles to avoid, we can start seeing them as opportunities to grow, learn, and become stronger than we were before. When I was learning how to walk again, I failed countless times. I fell down. I didn't know if I could get back up. But here's the thing about falling: it's not the fall that defines you. It's the decision to rise again that does. Every time I got back up, I built a little more strength. Every time I pushed through the pain, I built a little more resilience. And eventually those small victories added up to something bigger. But perseverance is not just about physical strength, it's about mental strength. It's about training your mind to believe that you can do it even when everything around you tells you to give up. You have to become your own biggest cheerleader, your own source of encouragement. It's easy to listen to that little voice in your head that says, you can't do this, but if you let that voice win, you'll never discover the strength that lies within you. When you're facing a challenge, it's important to remember that you don't have to go it alone. Seek support from others, lean on your loved ones, find mentors who can guide you, and surround yourself with people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. There's no shame in asking for help. In fact, it's one of the most courageous things you can do. Perseverance isn't about doing it all by yourself. It's about knowing when to reach out and how to keep moving forward with others by your side. Another powerful part of perseverance is learning to trust the process. When we're facing a challenge, it's easy to want immediate results. We want to see the outcome right away. But real progress takes time. There will be days when it feels like nothing is changing. You might feel like you're stuck or like the effort you're putting in is not paying off. But trust me, every step forward, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction. The process can be slow, but it's still progress. You have to be patient with yourself and trust that the work you're putting in will eventually lead to something bigger. And sometimes it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. We get so caught up in where we want to go that we forget to appreciate how far we've come. Every challenge we face, every setback, every failure, it's all part of the journey. Those moments, even the difficult ones, are what shape us and prepare us for what's ahead. So instead of rushing through the hard parts, try to find meaning in them. What can you learn from this moment? How is this challenge shaping you into the person you're meant to be? And as you persevere, make sure you celebrate the victories along the way, no matter how small. Perseverance doesn't mean waiting for the big moment to celebrate. It means acknowledging every step forward. Every time you don't give up, every time you get a little closer to your goal. Celebrate the effort, the progress, and the growth, not just the final destination, because it's the persistence in the little things that makes the big things possible. When you persevere through challenges, you learn things about yourself you never knew were possible. You discover a well of strength that you didn't realize was there. And that strength isn't just for today, it carries you through every new challenge you'll face in the future. Every time you push through, you become a little bit more unstoppable, a little bit more capable, and a whole lot stronger. Change your perspective. There's something incredibly powerful about how we see the world. It shapes everything, our actions, our decisions, how we react to challenges, and how we interact with others. Yet all too often we get stuck in a mindset, a way of seeing things that limits our growth. We look at a challenge and all we can see is the difficulty, the obstacle, the reason we can't move forward. But what if I told you that the moment you change your perspective is the moment your life can begin to shift? When I lost both my legs, my first reaction was to see my life as over. All I could see was the loss, the devastation, and the enormous hole that this new reality had created. I felt stuck. My dreams seemed unreachable, and the future I had imagined for myself felt like it was slipping through my fingers. It was a moment that forced me to confront my beliefs about myself, about what I was capable of, and about what life could look like. But the moment I changed my perspective, everything shifted. You see, changing your perspective doesn't mean ignoring the hard stuff or pretending everything is okay. It doesn't mean pushing away the feelings of fear, doubt, or frustration that you may face. Changing your perspective is about choosing to see things differently, about finding new ways to look at a situation, a person, or even yourself. It's about realizing that the way you interpret what's happening in your life doesn't have to define your outcome. The key is this, your perspective is the lens through which you see everything, and you have the power to change it at any moment. It's so easy to look at the world and feel like it's happening to you, like the universe is sending challenges your way because you're unlucky or because you're not good enough. I've had that feeling. I've thought, why me? Why is this happening to me? But one of the most freeing things I've ever realized is that life isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. Every experience, every challenge is part of my journey to growth, to becoming who I'm meant to be. If you change your perspective, you can see that the difficult things are often the very things that help you grow the most. They teach you lessons that success can't. They shape you, challenge you, and prepare you for what's next. The struggles are part of the process. They're not obstacles that stop you. They're stepping stones that push you forward. Think about a time in your life when you were stuck, when things weren't going your way. Now look at that moment from a different angle. What did it teach you? What did you learn about yourself? How did you change as a result of that experience? You see, changing your perspective doesn't erase the challenge. It transforms how you see it. It turns it from something that limits you into something that empowers you. Changing your perspective is a choice, and it's one of the most powerful choices you can make. It's about choosing to see possibility where others see only obstacles. It's about choosing to believe that you are not defined by your circumstances, but by your response to them. When you change your perspective, you change the game, you change the way you move through the world, and you change the way the world moves through you. Take action, no matter how small. There's a powerful lesson I've learned throughout my life, especially after losing my legs. Taking action, no matter how small, is what keeps you moving forward. When we're facing challenges or pursuing big dreams, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the enormity of what's ahead. It can seem like there's so much to do, so much to overcome, and the path to success is miles away. In those moments, it's easy to freeze, to feel stuck, to believe that unless you can take one giant leap forward, it's not even worth trying. But here's what I've discovered: those small actions, the tiny steps you take, are what create momentum. When I first started learning to walk again after my amputation, I was told it was going to be an incredibly slow process. I couldn't even imagine how I was going to stand up, let alone walk or get back to the activities I loved. There were days when I was frustrated, I was exhausted. The journey felt endless. And yet I knew that if I waited until I was ready or until I could take a giant leap forward, I'd never move at all. So I chose to take action, even if it was just a tiny step. That tiny action, that first attempt to stand, might have seemed insignificant at the time, but it was the beginning of everything. Each day I took small actions. Some days it was just standing up for a few minutes. Other days it was a few steps on crutches or using a walker. And with each tiny effort, my confidence grew, my strength grew. And before I knew it, those small actions added up to something huge. It was those moments when I took action, even when it felt like nothing was happening, that allowed me to keep moving forward. You see, the key isn't in waiting for the perfect moment or for everything to be perfectly aligned before you act. If you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll be waiting forever. The magic happens when you commit to doing something, no matter how small it seems, because every small action is a victory. Every time you do something, no matter how tiny, you are making progress. You are telling the universe, I'm not giving up. I'm not staying stuck. When I was learning how to snowboard again after losing my legs, it wasn't about instantly mastering the slopes. It was about the decision to show up every day, even when it was hard, even when I fell, even when I felt discouraged. Each fall was a small lesson. Each attempt was a small step closer to my goal. And all those little actions, those moments where I chose to try, to show up, to move forward, even if only a little bit, compounded into breakthroughs. So my message to you is this: don't underestimate the power of the small steps. They may feel insignificant, but each one carries you closer to your goal. Whether it's starting a new project, facing a fear, or making a change in your life, the key is to take action. Don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Just start. Do something, even if it feels like it's not enough. You'll be amazed at how that one small action can open up doors you didn't even see before. I know that it's easy to feel like the big picture is too overwhelming to even attempt, but here's the truth: the journey is made up of moments, and those moments are made up of small actions. It doesn't matter if the progress feels slow or if you don't have the whole plan figured out. What matters is that you keep moving, even if it's just a tiny step. In fact, sometimes those small steps are the most powerful ones because they add up without you even realizing it. There's a saying that progress is progress, no matter how small, and I can't stress enough how true that is. I've had to remind myself of this time and time again, especially on the days when it felt like nothing was changing. The journey towards healing, towards finding new strength, towards achieving new goals, it's not linear. Some days are better than others, but every single day when you take even one small action, you are moving closer to where you want to be. Small actions aren't just about physical movement, they're about mental shifts too. Sometimes taking action means choosing to shift your mindset, choosing to believe that it's possible, even when everything around you says it's not. Sometimes it means showing up for yourself when you feel like you don't have the strength. It's about doing the thing that scares you, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just one step forward. One of the most powerful things you can do for yourself is to stop waiting for the right moment. That moment may never come. Instead, focus on what you can do right now in this moment. Take action, no matter how small, and trust that each step you take is a step towards your success. When I was learning to walk again, I didn't know where the journey would take me. I didn't know if I would ever be able to snowboard again or do the things I loved. But I knew that I couldn't afford to wait for some magical moment when everything was perfect. I had to act, even if it was just standing or taking one step or holding onto the side of a wall for balance. Each of those actions built on the next. And before I knew it, I was able to do things I thought were impossible. The key here is momentum. When you take action, no matter how small, you build momentum. And once momentum is on your side, you can move mountains. Don't wait for motivation to come to you. Start where you are, and motivation will follow your action. Taking action, even in small doses, doesn't mean you won't face setbacks. It doesn't mean you won't experience doubt. It doesn't mean things will be easy. But every small action is a testament to your commitment. It's your proof that you're in this for the long haul, that you're willing to take one step at a time, even when the full picture seems unclear. Every action you take is an investment in your future. Every little choice you make today is building the foundation for tomorrow. Accept imperfection. We all have an idea in our minds of how things are supposed to be. We envision perfection, whether it's the perfect version of ourselves, our careers, our relationships, or our goals. We chase after this ideal, sometimes at the expense of our own well-being, believing that if we can just get everything right, then we'll be happy, successful, or worthy. But here's the truth I've learned: perfection doesn't exist, and striving for it will only hold you back. Instead, what truly matters is learning to accept imperfection, because that's where the magic happens. When I lost both my legs, I had this image in my mind of what I thought my life should look like. I imagined myself continuing to be active, competitive, and living a full life just as I had before. But life had other plans. And in those early days, I had a hard time accepting that what I thought was perfect was now out of reach. I struggled with the idea that I would never again be the person I used to be. It took me a long time to realize that perfection wasn't the goal anymore. Learning to accept my new reality, imperfections and all, was the real challenge and the real opportunity. When we expect perfection from ourselves, we set ourselves up for failure no matter how hard we try, no matter how much we push, we are never going to be perfect. And that's okay. We don't need to be perfect to be worthy or successful. What we need is to embrace our imperfections and understand that they don't define our worth. It's through accepting who we are, flaws and all, that we begin to create something real and meaningful. I remember when I was learning how to walk with prosthetics for the first time. Every step felt awkward. Every movement felt unnatural. It was painful, it was frustrating, and it didn't look anything like the way I had imagined walking before. At first, I thought, I'm failing. This isn't how it's supposed to be. But over time, I learned that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. The more I accepted the imperfect process of learning, the more I was able to move forward. Accepting imperfection isn't about resigning yourself to mediocrity. It's about understanding that the pursuit of excellence doesn't have to be flawless. It's about giving yourself permission to make mistakes, to stumble, and to learn along the way. Every misstep, every fall is part of the journey. It's through these imperfect moments that we learn more about ourselves, our resilience, and our capacity to grow. There's a beautiful lesson in this: perfection is an illusion, but growth is real. When you release the idea that things have to be perfect in order to be worth it, you open the door to real, authentic growth. Instead of focusing on how things should be, you start embracing how they are, and that's where the growth takes place. When I first started snowboarding after my accident, I had this mental image of what it would look like. I imagined myself gliding effortlessly down the slopes just like I used to. But the reality was so different. I fell more times than I can count. The first was clumsy, I was awkward. But here's the thing, I realized those falls weren't failures, they were steps forward. Every time I got up, I learned something new. I learned to trust my body in a different way. I learned to be okay with not getting it perfect, and that mindset is what allowed me to get better and better over time. The thing about perfection is that it's often tied to unrealistic expectations, both from ourselves and others. It's this idea that we need to meet some standard to be worthy or to be seen as successful. But here's the secret: the most beautiful, most meaningful things in life are rarely perfect. They're messy, they're raw, they're real. Think about the things that move you, whether it's a piece of art, a conversation, or a moment of connection with someone. It's the flaws, the authenticity, and the vulnerability that make them so powerful. The same goes for your life. It's not the flawless moments that define you, it's the imperfect ones, the moments when you showed up even though things weren't perfect. We need to stop judging ourselves so harshly. We need to stop expecting that we should always have it all together or that we should always be performing at our highest level. Perfectionism is paralyzing. It keeps you stuck in the fear of making mistakes. It stops you from taking risks, from stepping outside your comfort zone, and from embracing new opportunities. When you let go of perfection, you make room for growth, creativity, and resilience. You make room for the messy, imperfect beauty of life. I've found that accepting imperfection also allows you to give others grace. When you stop holding yourself to an unattainable standard, you stop holding others to the same standard. You begin to see people as they are, not as they should be. You learn to appreciate the beauty in their flaws, their growth, and their progress. When we embrace our own imperfections, we naturally become more accepting and compassionate towards others, and that's how true connections are made. Here's the key: imperfection is not a weakness, it's a strength. It takes courage to embrace imperfection, to show up authentically, and to keep moving forward even when things aren't perfect. Perfection, on the other hand, often breeds fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not measuring up. When you let go of that fear, you free yourself to truly live. But accepting imperfection doesn't mean giving up on growth or excellence. It's about understanding that growth is a process, and the process is always messy. There will be setbacks, there will be mistakes. But every single one of those moments adds something valuable to your journey. Progress doesn't require perfection, it requires persistence, patience, and a willingness to learn from every experience, no matter how imperfect it may seem. When I started embracing imperfection, I started to see the world in a different way. I started to see the beauty in the struggle, the lessons in the setbacks, and the strength and vulnerability. I saw that my imperfections weren't things to be hidden or fixed, but things to be celebrated. Those imperfections are what make us human, they're what make us real, they're what make us us. Celebrate progress, not perfection. We live in a world where perfection is often held up as the ultimate goal. It's what we see in movies, on social media, and even in the stories we tell ourselves. The perfect body, the perfect career, the perfect life. It's easy to get caught up in this idea that unless we reach that perfect point, we haven't succeeded. But here's the truth I've learned: perfection isn't the point, progress is. And it's about time we start celebrating progress, not perfection. When we focus on perfection, we lose sight of the little wins. We get so caught up in the idea that we're not there yet that we fail to appreciate how much we've grown. But the reality is, growth is messy. It's not linear. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it's uncomfortable and frustrating. There are setbacks, stumbles, and failures along the way. But that doesn't mean we're not progressing. Every small effort you make, every inch you move forward is worth celebrating. So why do we so often overlook our progress? Why do we get caught in the trap of thinking we're not enough until we've achieved some arbitrary idea of perfect? The answer lies in our own expectations. We expect things to happen quickly, easily, and flawlessly, But that's not how life works. Life is messy, unpredictable, and sometimes painful. And that's okay. In fact, that's what makes it beautiful. We learn and grow through the challenges, not in spite of them. The progress is often hidden in the struggle, and the key is to acknowledge that even on the hardest days, we're still moving forward. The pressure to be perfect can be overwhelming. We live in a society that thrives on images of flawless success, whether it's the perfect body, the perfect home, or the perfect career. But here's the truth, those images are often just illusions. Perfection is not the measure of success, progress is. It's about taking consistent steps toward your goal, no matter how small those steps may seem. It's about showing up even on the days when you feel like you've taken 2 steps back. It's about looking at where you started and seeing how far you've come. When I was learning how to snowboard again, it wasn't just about the finish line. It was about the process, the commitment, the persistence, and the willingness to keep going even when it didn't look perfect. And believe me, it often didn't. But every single time I showed up, every time I got back on the board, I was making progress. Even when I wasn't perfect, I was moving closer to my goal. And that's what really mattered. Another thing I've learned is that celebrating progress is empowering. It builds confidence, it fuels your motivation. When you take the time to acknowledge how far you've come, you remind yourself that you're capable. You remind yourself that progress isn't always. You begin to see how much you've accomplished, how strong you've become, and how much you've grown. Celebrating progress allows you to appreciate the journey, to understand that the challenges, the setbacks, and the imperfections are all part of the process. They don't detract from your success, they add to it. Without those moments, without those small steps, you wouldn't have the growth, the strength, or the wisdom that you have today. So here's the challenge: don't wait for perfection to celebrate. Celebrate the small wins. Celebrate the moments when you take action, even if it feels like it's not enough. Celebrate the days when you keep going, even when you don't feel like it. Celebrate the effort, the courage, and the perseverance it takes to keep moving forward. Those moments, those small steps are what add up to something amazing. Perfection may never come, and that's okay. But progress, that's something real. Celebrate it, cherish it, and let it be the fuel that propels you forward. Find strength in vulnerability. Vulnerability is one of the most misunderstood words in our language. It's often seen as a weakness, something we should hide or shield ourselves from. We tend to associate vulnerability with fragility, with being exposed, and with opening ourselves up to pain or disappointment. But in reality, vulnerability is one of the most powerful tools we have. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. After I lost my legs, I had a choice to make. I could close off, hide my pain, and put on a brave face to the world, pretending like everything was okay. Or I could be vulnerable. I could allow myself to feel the depth of what I had gone through, the sadness, the fear, the uncertainty, and most importantly, I could share that vulnerability with others. And that was hard. It was hard because I had spent so much of my life trying to be strong, trying to be independent, trying to have everything together. But what I didn't realize at the time was that true strength comes from being able to show up even when you're broken. At first, I thought I needed to hide my vulnerability. I thought that if I let people see my pain, my fears, and my struggles, they would see me as weak. But the truth is, it's the opposite. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, when we allow ourselves to truly feel and express our emotions, we open the door to healing. We open the door to connection. We open the door to connection. We open the door to real strength. It's only through embracing vulnerability that we can truly grow. One of the most powerful things I've learned is that vulnerability doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Every single one of us experiences pain. Every one of us has moments of doubt. Every one of us faces obstacles that feel impossible to overcome. But it's in those moments of struggle, in those moments when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that we find the strength we need to move forward. Vulnerability is where we tap into our resilience. It's where we tap into our power. For me, vulnerability was not just about sharing my emotions with others, it was about showing up for myself. I had to be vulnerable enough to admit that I didn't have all the answers. I had to be vulnerable enough to ask for help when I needed it. I had to be vulnerable enough to allow myself to fall and get back up again over and over. It wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable, but it was in those moments of vulnerability that I began to rebuild myself one step at a time. The beauty of vulnerability is that it connects us to others in a way that nothing else can. When we let down our walls and allow ourselves to be open, we create space for real, authentic connections. People can relate to your struggles. They can relate to your pain. They can see themselves in your vulnerability. And when they see you showing up, being real and raw, it gives them the courage to do the same. Vulnerability is a bridge, a pathway to deeper relationships and a shared understanding of the human experience. When I was learning to walk with prosthetics, I had to let go of the idea that I could do it all on my own. I had to ask for help. I had to allow myself to be supported by others. It was humbling. It was difficult. But in that vulnerability, I found a strength that I never knew I had. By admitting that I needed help, by being open to learning from others, I was able to tap into a network of support that carried me through some of my toughest moments. Vulnerability isn't about weakness, it's about being willing to face your fears and ask for help when you need it. It's about showing up as you are without shame or hesitation. There's a powerful truth in this. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you give others permission to do the same. You show them that it's okay to not be okay. You show them that it's okay to ask for help. You show them that it's okay to fail and to get back up. Vulnerability creates a safe space for growth, for healing, and for authenticity. It allows you to connect with others in a deeper, more meaningful way. But vulnerability also teaches you something incredible about yourself. It teaches you to be kind to yourself. When you're vulnerable, you're acknowledging that you're human, you're acknowledging that you have limits, that you make mistakes, and that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. And when you allow yourself that grace, when you accept yourself as you are imperfections and all, you create the foundation for real growth. You can't heal if you don't allow yourself to feel. And you can't grow if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to let go of the shame, the fear, and the self-doubt that hold you back. I'll tell you right now, vulnerability is not easy. It's one of the hardest things you can do. It requires courage, it requires trust, and it requires a willingness to face your fears head on. But I promise you, the rewards of embracing vulnerability are immeasurable. It's through vulnerability that you find your strength. It's through vulnerability that you discover your true self. And it's through vulnerability that you can create a life that is truly fulfilling. When I look back on my journey, the moments that stand out the most are not the times when I was perfect or when everything was going according to plan. The moments that stand out are the ones when I was raw, when I was struggling, when I was open about my fears, my doubts, and my pain. It was in those moments that I found my power. It was in those moments that I became stronger than I ever thought possible. Vulnerability is not about being weak. It's about being brave enough to stand in your truth even when it's hard. It's about accepting your imperfections, acknowledging your pain, and allowing yourself the space to heal and grow. True strength doesn't come from perfection. It comes from embracing your vulnerability and using it as a source of power.
Embrace your journey, embrace your power.
Your journey is unique. No one else has walked the path that you are on, and that is something to celebrate. So embrace your uniqueness, persevere through the challenges, and change your perspective when things don't go as planned. Take action, no matter how small the step, and accept imperfection as the beautiful part of your growth. You have the strength to keep moving forward, and you have the power to create the life you desire, even if it looks different from what you once imagined. You are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. And I promise you, the best version of you is not somewhere far off in the future. It's right here, right now. It's in every moment you decide to take another step, no matter how hard it may seem. Keep going. Embrace the imperfections. Celebrate your progress. And always, always find the strength in being vulnerable. Thank you for taking this journey with me today. Keep moving forward with courage and confidence because the world needs the real, imperfect, beautiful version of you.